Hello, and welcome to the MindfulOpus podcast. I'm your host, Jo Zakany, violist with the Cleveland Orchestra, yoga teacher, and coach for classical musicians. Here, we switch from grind to kind in our artistic process so that artists like you can avoid burnout, ditch performance anxiety, and create a thriving, healthy life on and off stage. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hello, my fellow Opus creator, and welcome to episode 4. I am so happy to be with you today. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you for all the positivity around this podcast launch. Your thoughtful shares and messages have meant so much to me as we all continue to build this community together. Speaking of, I would love to hear from you if there is something specific you would like me to dive into in a future episode. Maybe it's something I've already touched on that you want a deeper debrief on, or something that's been on your mind in general. If so, send me a message over on Instagram at MindfulOpus, or shoot me an email at contact@mindfulopus.com. Today, I want to share a framework that's almost the direct flip of episode 2. While episode 2, titled The Perfection Trap, focused on how your performance game affects the quality of your life, both on and off stage, this framework, the Well-Being Wheel, takes a bird's eye view at how all the different parts of your life work together in shaping you, both on and off stage. So as I mentioned, I'll be breaking down the MindfulOpus Well-Being Wheel, which is crafted for you, my fellow musician, and inspired by my coaching certification. But you can actually go download an entire workbook on my website. So if you want to follow along or do this work more in depth after the episode, go grab a free copy at mindfulopus.com. Now, I want you to picture a circle, and this circle represents your world, your life. Now think of that circle as a pie, and each slice represents something that matters to you. Your family, your friends, maybe it's sleep, and of course, your music. If I asked you to write what's most important in that circle right now, I bet the music would take up a pretty big chunk. For some, maybe even the whole pie, if you're in audition mode or you're a diligent student, for example. And while that level of devotion can feel admirable, it feels like passion and purpose, eventually that imbalance starts to wear on you. It can lead to anything from burning out to a full-on identity crisis, particularly if you're working so hard. You can start to wonder, what's this all for anyway? If you felt this way, I promise you are not alone. Research warns us that living with tunnel vision on a single goal simply isn't sustainable. So, going back to that pie, I'm offering that with the Well-Being Wheel, music is 1/7 of your life. Still important, but balanced amongst 6 other areas that support you as the whole human that you actually are. So the 7 slices of pie are music, mind, body, spirituality, hobby, social, and rest. As we go through each of these today, I've included a simple reflection, prompt, or tool at the end of each slice so that you get 7 different ways to tangibly implement what we covered today. So fun. But my little caveat is before we continue, please do not use this as another way to measure yourself negatively. You're not aiming to do this balance and well-being thing perfectly. If you approach it this way, I promise you'll set yourself up for failure. Think of this more as an opportunity to give yourself an honest check-in. It's an awareness practice, that's all. So meet what comes up with non-judgment and kindness, because you'll never find all 7 pieces perfectly whole at once. Frankly, if you have, DM me because you may be enlightened and I need to talk to you. So again, the point isn't perfection. It's awareness. Seeing how the parts of your life influence one another and gently adding small supports and recalibration when possible, where possible, and as needed. The first piece is music. It's about turning your art and your passion into a career that sustains both your fulfillment and your growth personally and professionally. For most of us, music is where it all began. The thing that gave our lives structure, purpose, and even that sense of identity. But as you move through different stages of your musical life, from the diligent student to the active professional, the seasoned veteran, your relationship to music evolves and changes over time. Your priorities, what inspires you, and frankly, the natural creative ebb and flow of being a musician has to be allowed to bend and be fluid. So, this piece asks you to reflect on what matters most within your musical life, using your values and your goals. Let's unpack those a bit. Your values are self-determined principles that guide how you want to live and work. They're the compass beneath your choices so that those choices are aligned with who you are, who you want to be in this world. For example, you might value authenticity, autonomy, connection, kindness, community, or family, just to share a few directly from my clients' work. And when your daily life reflects those values, you feel more at ease, more like yourself, like your inside and your outside world are in alignment. But when you're living and making choices that are continually out of alignment, you may accidentally end up in a place that is quite far from where you actually want to be. So in this case, a re-examining of your choices may be in order. Doing so involves looking at your goals, which are guided by your values. If you value kindness, for example, your goal may be developing some kindness around how you work. Maybe you lean into excellence over perfection, for example. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go listen to episode 2 after this. Or let's say you value connection. Maybe you prioritize creating or playing in chamber groups, or you lean into teaching as a way of connecting with what you know, passing it on to the next generation. Or maybe you know you love playing in a big ensemble like an orchestra. Letting your goals be guided by your values is a huge part of your overall well-being, and I'm really leaning into it in the music piece intentionally. Because many of us weren't taught to have that internal compass. And I've seen time and time again those clients that come to me feeling off track, and where we always start is their values. Now, I know these are big concepts. Frankly, I could do an entire episode on this. So if that's interesting to you, shoot me a message. But let's break this down into a quick reflection. So I want you to think of a recent moment when music felt really good, where you lost track of time, where you felt the most like yourself. I want you to examine what was happening in that moment. Chances are, one of your values was quietly being honored. See if you can name just one. If you need some inspiration, common ones include connection, kindness, flow, creativity. Once you have your value, choose one small way you could let that value show up in your music this week. Let's say you chose kindness. Maybe you can be kind to yourself in the practice room, being that inner coach to yourself. Or maybe you chose connection. So you set up a chamber music reading, or you send a quick message of thanks to that member in your group after you performed. Whatever you decide, keep it small and simple, because this piece is a reminder that your musical path is yours to define while you create the most authentic expression of who you are. The second piece is the mind. This is all about your mental care. It's how you relate to your thoughts and your ability to stay grounded in life, both on and off stage. This piece asks you to start caring for your mental world as intentionally as you care for your musical one. After all, your mind, like your instrument, needs to be trained. And that training can take many forms: journaling, self-reflection, therapy, coaching, meditation. At its core, It's the practice of noticing what's happening in your thoughts and not buying everything you think. Because here's what I know to be so true. Your thoughts are just thoughts, and they can be changed. We know this from neuroplasticity. We know that we have way more control over our ability to shape our thinking. And considering last I checked, we have on average something like 60,000 thoughts a day, learning to decipher which thoughts are serving you and which aren't is crucially important to your well-being. At the core of this neuroplasticity is the noticing that you're even thinking, developing that non-judgmental awareness, a key concept in mindfulness above all else. Because mindfulness helps you become aware when you're in a negative spiral in the practice room, for example, so you can pivot and change course. It's also what helps you notice that inner critic barking in your ear as you're about to go on stage, so you can shift to that inner coach. Many of us were trained to focus only on performing, on perfecting the result, without learning how to care for the mind that drives it all. And I think, as the saying goes, the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. So prioritizing your mental health is very important. One of the simplest ways to get a grip on your mind is to combine it with the breath. Connecting your mind and your breath helps you come back into the present moment versus being lost in thoughts. And in addition to the calm that comes from being more present, this training is a game changer for peak performance. You may remember in episode 3 when our guest James Patterson talked about his mental game. If you haven't listened, that's also a very worthy episode. He talks about how mindfulness was a huge part of his success, and that's because he developed the skills of concentration and controlled attention. So that's what this simple mindfulness exercise we're about to do is all about. So to do it, simply count 10 breaths. That's it. You can do it anywhere with your eyes opened or closed, counting in your mind with the inhale and exhale as one full count. So breathing in 1, breathing out 1. Give it a try and notice how you feel by the time you get to 10. You may feel calmer or more present. Repeat anytime for positive mental training. The third piece is body. Pretty straightforward, but often overlooked. Body care includes everything from posture and stretching to movement practices like yoga, massage, spending time outdoors, hydration, and nutrition. So it's a pretty packed category. When I was injured over 20 years ago, body awareness wasn't part of my musical training. Thankfully, I see that shifting in our industry. But injury and fatigue are still parts of many musicians' realities. You are, after all, an athlete using repetitive motions. So the risk of injury is there, hence why long-term care is so important. My suggestion with this one is to start paying attention early. Notice what supports you physically and prioritize that as much as possible, particularly during heavy playing weeks. I actually used to tell my students, if you're practicing with awareness, you may be mentally tired after 15 minutes or so, which is great because then you can take a walk and stretch. So maybe start there. More breaks, more stretching, even simply shaking out your arms when you have a few bars rest in a performance makes a big difference. The point here, my friend, is to get good at paying attention to your body. It's not something we're usually great at listening to. So this piece is your reminder to honor it as best you can, giving it the priority it needs and deserves. The fourth piece is spirituality. Now, before you go and turn the dial down, if this doesn't resonate, stay with me and simply swap it out with philosophy or something that connects you to that deeper why that guides you through life. This isn't just woo-woo stuff I'm talking about here. Scientific studies actually show that when we cultivate a sense of meaning, purpose, and connection, or what researchers call, quote, spiritual well-being, we experience lower stress, stronger resilience, and better overall health. Spirituality might show up in stillness or contemplative practices like meditation or prayer. Or perhaps you're walking in nature, feeling that sort of stillness. And of course, it shows up in music itself. We've probably all experienced a sense of spiritual connection as both listeners of music and participants in the art form. Think of it as connecting to that moment of awe, that quiet, that depth, that's something greater than yourself and your goals. Having a spiritual practice can help you foster and keep that connection to your art so that you can cultivate a more sustainable approach for years to come. I know this is a little bit abstract, so if you're not sure where to start, here's a short imagery reflection. Think of a time when life slowed down and when you felt that sense of awe. It could be gazing at the stars, walking in nature, hearing the waves in the ocean, or listening to a beautiful piece of music. What was that moment like? Can you describe it for yourself? Really visualize this imagery and get clear from all the senses. What did it look like? What was the temperature like? What were the smells like? Create this memory in your mind and know that this imagery is always within you. All you have to do is close your eyes and think of this moment and create a mini sense of awe throughout your day. The fifth piece is hobby, the part of you that creates simply for fun. No pressure on a particular outcome, just good old-fashioned play. Remember as a kid how great that used to feel? The thing about hobbies is they help you reconnect to that sense of play, curiosity, in a way that exists outside of achievement, particularly important the longer we go into adulthood. Again, for my science nerds out there, here's another science-backed quote. Higher levels of leisure and hobby-type activities are associated with better psychological and physiological functioning, including lower cortisol and better self-reported physical health. Many of us fall into the trap of thinking music is our hobby. And maybe that's the case for some if it's not your career. But in this case, we have to honor the need to create and play outside of music as a way of nourishing our overall creative spirit. Your hobby can be anything that brings you joy. Examples from working with clients includes gardening, writing, cooking, hiking, running, home design, horseback riding, painting. The list is truly endless. The sneaky fun side of a hobby is that when you allow yourself to explore life beyond music, you often come back to your art more refreshed, inspired, and more connected to it. You start to remember what it felt like to create from curiosity, not from pressure. So your art accidentally gets better while not focusing on it. Fun, huh? If you're not sure where to begin, why don't you start with reflecting on what you used to do as a kid that you enjoyed, or just something you've recently been curious about. Perhaps you loved reading fiction, in which case, go to your local bookstore and see what pops out of the shelves from a place of curiosity. Because if you let curiosity be your guide with this one, you'll land on what lights you up, I promise. As long as you don't look for perfection in the process, you'll find a lovely hobby and create some playtime in no time. The sixth piece is social. The people who surround you, who support you, and help you feel connected to something larger than yourself. As musicians, we spend so much time alone, particularly in the practice room. And that solitude can lead to great musical moments of creative flow. Maybe you get lost in a solo Bach movement, and it can kind of embody that creative, healing self-expression. But if you spend too much time alone and not in connection with others, you may end up feeling lonely in the artistic process. So the social piece supports joy and community in our lives. It's amazing the power of a good connection. Haven't we all experienced feeling frustrated in the practice room only to feel better the minute we have a hug or a good conversation with a friend? That's because healthy co-regulation, which is a fancy term for healthy relationships, literally rewires the brain for resilience, releasing oxytocin, lowering cholesterol, and calming your nervous system. Now, a healthy social life is about quality versus quantity. You don't need a large community, but you do need one that aligns with who you are. It's about feeling seen, supportive, and creating that sense of safety, allowing you to be your most authentic self. If you've been feeling disconnected or isolated lately, I suggest you try reaching out to someone you miss and send them a quick message. Or send them a funny picture or a meme if you're an elder millennial like me. Anything to let them know you're thinking of them. Keep it small and simple. You'll be surprised how far a short moment of connection goes for both sender and receiver. Science shows relationships are one of the strongest predictors of long-term health and well-being. So this piece is your gentle reminder that you don't have to do this life thing or music thing alone. And finally, the seventh piece is rest. Contrary to what our overactive society wants us to think, rest is not laziness and it's not wasting time. It's actually the much needed counterbalance to all that doing in the world. So think of it as switching from a human doing to a human being. Rest can take many forms. Of course, it's having healthy sleep hygiene and cultivating a healthy sleep schedule. But it's also turning away from the constant stimulation that our world bombards us with. Think walking without headphones, a few conscious deep breaths, any contemplative practice that allows you to turn inwards and power down so you can reset your nervous system and recalibrate from all those stressors in life. I know for many of us, rest can feel like that, oh, sure, I'll get to it sometime category, where the shoulds kick in and tell you, you should be practicing, you should be doing more. Sound familiar? Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to just stop. Take a minute, drink some water, step away from whatever you're intensely doing. Close your eyes and do some deep breathing. That pause resets and rebalances your nervous system, helping you find more calm, something we all need more of in this world. So while I don't have a practical tool for this one, I have something better. Permission. You don't need it, but I'm giving it to you. Here is your permission to rest. And if you need a harder sell, let the power of science compel you. I have one last science quote for you today. Scientific research shows that adequate rest and recovery enhances focus, learning, resilience, and overall well-being, making rest a proven foundation for both peak performance and long-term health. So those are the 7 pieces of the well-being wheel: music, mind, body, spirituality, hobby, social, and rest. If you'd like to explore this more deeply, head to MindfulOpus.com and download the free Well-Being Wheel workbook. You'll find a self-assessment method, reflections, as well as a concrete goal-setting guide rooted in my coaching framework to help you create small, meaningful steps forward. I hope this episode inspires you to see your life a bit differently. By caring for yourself more holistically and seeing yourself more multidimensionally, you anchor into a deeper sense of who you are, and you end up living a fuller, more vibrant life. Because isn't that what this one wild and precious life is all about? For episode 5, we have a superstar guest. I am so excited. He's one of my all-time favorite artists, period. And as incredible as he is on stage, he's a deeply caring human being, and one I'm lucky enough to call a friend. Over the years, we've bonded over yoga, meditation, and creativity, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. Until then, take good care, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Mindful Opus podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider adding the show to your library, write a blurb in the review section, or share it with someone in your circle. For more about my work, you can find me on Instagram at MindfulOpus or my website, MindfulOpus.com. And while you're there, don't forget to grab that free well-being resource waiting for you. Until next time, my fellow Opus creator, keep creating the life you want, one opus at a time.